time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
How about our guys? We just seem to find a way, and I think, we're now 11 games in. We've had 6 one-run games, and we're 5-1 in those games. So, our guys compete pretty hard as well.
Well, I learned a lot about my team today. I learned that when we fell behind 6-0, we're not going to give up to anybody at any time, and I think that's important. The message I just gave the team is that we're obviously disappointed with the loss, but we learned a lot about ourselves today. A lot of teams in this ballpark falling behind 6-0 would not have done what we did today, so we learned a lot of good things today.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Monday night from downtown Columbia. What a weekend. What a week ahead. Phil Kornbluth, the Professor Tom Hayes, Brian Leonard, all here at our studios in downtown Columbia. There's a big space open at our table here this evening. The big guy, Will Pelagic, he's gone home to be with his people. Not literally gone home, but he is up in New York to cover the ACC tournament. He's back with his kind. There is a nor'easter, been one in New York, and there's another one coming tomorrow. I listened to the weather in New York. So I was hoping, Will, that some of the hot air you're bringing from the south might warm things up there in the Big Apple.
No such luck, Corn. No such luck. They say the snow is coming, and it is coming fast and furious on Wednesday. Although, despite the varying reports of accumulations, they're saying that the temperature should keep it warm enough so that it does not accumulate too much. Good.
Well, you'll be indoors at the Barclays Center beginning tomorrow. ACC tips it off tomorrow afternoon.
It does. And, it's interesting. I was listening to, as you do, I was listening to New York radio on my way up on the plane. And so much has been ballyhooed about the Big Ten moving its tournament to New York last week and the ACC playing in Brooklyn. And I know the traditionalists like it to be more close to the conference's natural base. But the one thing that you can't put a price on is the exposure that you get in this market. And if I'm Clemson sports information director, or if I'm Georgia Tech sports information director, what I'm doing this week, right when I get here, is I am running my coach and a player by ESPN Radio in New York, by WFAN in New York, and trying to get their program on one of the grandest radio and television stages that you can possibly get on. And I know that obviously for the fans, it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense to have it here. You're catering to Syracuse in the ACC. You're catering to Rutgers in the Big Ten. But make the most of this opportunity if you are an ACC team that is a non-traditional power, someone outside of a Duke or a North Carolina. This is an opportunity for you to expose your program to an audience that you wouldn't normally get basically put in your lap.
But depending on how much snow you get, I can see a lot of ACC fans bringing their personal video equipment with them and then filming handfuls of snow saying, Jim Boeheim, this is why we have the tournament in Greensboro.
Hey, you know what? It has snowed in Greensboro and Charlotte before in March when they've had the tournament. So, well, we're glad you're up there. Looking forward to your outstanding coverage of the ACC tournament, in particular when Clemson finally gets around to playing on Thursday. Looking forward to that. SEC tournament begins on Wednesday in St. Louis. We'll have coverage from our brothers in Missouri from Missouri Net, Bill Pollock. You know Bill. He's one of us. He's with us here on the Sports Talk on a time-to-time basis. He'll be covering the Gamecocks and the SEC tournament for us there. So we got both of the big events this week covered for you. CAA semifinals tonight at the North Charleston Coliseum, and the College of Charleston just tipping off a little while ago against William and Mary. That's the first game of two. The other one, Wilmington against Northeastern. Again, that's at the North Charleston Coliseum. Southern Conference Championship tonight, East Tennessee against UNC Greensboro. Now, so much to do. We really need 4 hours tonight. Congratulations to the USC women, a fourth straight SEC championship, unprecedented, and starting to play great basketball again. I be honest with you, the way they looked against UConn, the way they were beaten by Tennessee a couple of times, even though Asia Wilson didn't play in those games, to come back and beat Tennessee and beat Mississippi State. Asia Wilson's playing at such a high level right now. Just make sure that she doesn't hurt an ankle or have another case of vertigo. She can carry this team back to the Final Four, depending on how that bracket looks when it comes out next week.
Well, I tell you what, the hero last night, though, because she was really great against that press, is Harris. Her short jumpers penetrating in the lane, that got them started.
Mm-hmm.
And Asia Wilson, see, I like athletes who are superstitious, because she said that the way they were playing so well, she decided she would, in the tournament, continue to come off the bench, because why spoil a good thing?
Yeah. The baseball series between South Carolina and Clemson, it was in a word, epic. Of course, it came right down. The deciding game came down to the last inning, a one-run difference between these two teams, and Clemson wins it again for a fourth straight year. Will, your first opportunity to see the series up close, packed houses at all three venues. I told you it would be one of the most fun sports events that you would cover anywhere, anytime, and I think it lived up to the billing.
It was very unique, Corn. One of the most unique experiences that I've ever been a part of covering sports, just seeing kind of the three different atmospheres. And I know that the South Carolina atmosphere, at least at Founders Park, I know that the fans have taken somewhat of a muted response to Mark Kingston's team. But for the first time, at least this season, you saw the passion of South Carolina baseball fans from the Gamecock perspective. And you saw it on both sides when you saw it in Greenville. And, of course, when you saw it in Clemson at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. Basically intensity on every pitch. I know that Saturday, the weather, with the way it lended itself in Greenville, kind of led to a little bit of a dead atmosphere from the fifth inning on, especially because of the way the game did. But both bookend games were not short of drama, not short of every decision basically being dissected. And it really gave us our first opportunity to see how Mark Kingston handles games. And if you were going to give him a grade, I would say, probably not the best grade for the first week, because there were some decisions. I know that you quibbled with his pitching decisions on Sunday, going to Demurius early on against Clemson there and him giving up a prompt home run. I wonder whether or not his 5 outs that he recorded on Friday might have led to Eddie maybe not necessarily being as hot coming out of the bullpen on Sunday. Yeah,
who knows? We didn't get a clear answer on that, but that's baseball, man. That's why you question the moves. I also had a question about in that last game regarding Kingston and South Carolina when they had first and second and nobody out, and Stokes was in the hole and he chose not to bunt. He could have had Stokes at the plate second and third and 1 out. Instead, they get a double play ball. They get nothing out of the inning, and I thought maybe you would have moved the runners up there to give Stokes a chance with 1 out in second and third. Clemson, like we've said before, they are hard to beat. They just find a way to come from behind in games, pull things out. They were ahead here, and South Carolina showed great grit and determination in coming from behind. Interesting comments from L.T. Tolbert that we'll play for you a little bit later on as well about the attitude of this Gamecock team compared to last year's team. We'll bring all that to you. But something to think about if you're South Carolina now, Pro. You're 7-5. I haven't looked it up. It's got to be one of the slowest starts record-wise for South Carolina in years. You're 7-5 at this point. So when you get to SEC play, as tough as the league is, and considering the team South Carolina has as far as we know it at this point, if they can go 15-15, if that means that's 20 losses. So that means if you don't lose any more non-league games and you win 15 league games, you split your SEC schedule, you go 15-15. That's 20 losses. That's only 36 wins in the regular season. That might put them up against it when it comes to tournament selection time if they don't get the automatic bid. Now, they could win 18, they could win 20, they could win 22 league games, and that would be moot. But these losses they've had here early on, 5 and 12 games, will be a problem for them if they don't have a big SEC season coming up here soon. All right, we'll be right back.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Crazy busy edition of Sports Talk tonight. I like to call this a dope night on Sports Talk. Trying to be hip and cool and in the world of Twitter and smack talk. It's a dope world here on Sports Talk tonight. We are so busy.
I don't think you're using that correctly. I really don't.
Is there an incorrect way to use it?
I think you get arrested.
I think you're doing it. I think you're doing it.
Whatever. We will take some calls if you want to join in. 800-956-7266 and talk about the baseball weekend behind us. What did you think of everything? The USC women winning another SEC championship. From my vantage point, a bit of a surprise, to be honest with you. I did not think they would go in to Nashville this year and win it, but they did. They moved up in the national poll to number 7. Here's Dawn Staley after yesterday's win, beating Mississippi State, handing Mississippi State its first loss, avenging a regular season loss to the Bulldogs. Here is the coach of the USC women.
I thought our players were ready to play the game, and they stayed engaged for 40 minutes, and that's the kind of effort it took to beat a team like Mississippi State.
On looking ahead, tournament seedings will start being discussed over the next week. Where do you think that this team should be? As a number 2, as a number 3? Of course, I'm sure you'd rather be in Lexington, but what do you think this win does for your seeding in the NCAAs?
I don't know. I think what we did was control our own destiny. And then it's in somebody else's hands to decide where we go. Obviously, we can't do anything about it once it's announced, but besides win our tournament and see if that, puts us in a great place where our fans can attend the games.
Dawn, can you your defense? How impressive was that today? I mean, to hold Mississippi State to their fewest points. They had the comeback against you all in the fourth quarter back in February, but you kind of put the throttle on them there in the second half, particularly.
I just thought our kids were engaged and locked into the game plan, and they did not want to lose. I think they wanted to create their own history, which is to win 4 SEC tournament championships, and they were determined to do it.
So what does this mean about Dawn Staley in South Carolina, her greatness as a coach, the program that she has built to win this championship in college basketball's toughest women's league, I think we could say, to do it 4 years in a row, to win any league 4 years in a row is extremely difficult. To do it in this league has been unimaginable because nobody else has done it. Not the great Tennessee teams of Pat Summitt won 4 straight championships. Not the great teams of Andy Landers at Georgia won 4 straight championships. And I guess maybe when you least expected it, Dawn Staley got her team playing its best basketball and got it done.
Again, you hear all coaches talk about culture. This basketball team, they couldn't get a transfer in when they wanted to. Their best grad transfer, best three-point shooter, injured, out for the season. Their speediest point guard never got on the floor the entire season. And they still had the best player in college basketball, Asia Wilson. And Aisha Harris grew up. She was a freshman last year and won a national championship. And she did not let this team down, and they lost a regular season title. They could have had a 4th regular season title. They said, well, we'll make it up in the tournament. And I think it's twofold, not only their culture, but I thought Mississippi State came in the game undefeated and they were tight. I saw some missed shots point blank that Mississippi State normally makes, and their defense wasn't as crisp as they are. And I think South Carolina's women had a lot to do with that because they refused to lose this ball game. Once they smelled blood in the water, they weren't going to lose that 10-point lead.
Asia Wilson, big once again, 16 points, 8 rebounds, a steal, and assists. She has just been fantastic, Will. And I think that, she is such a great player and such a great leader. She's one of those people that she can take the rest of the team and really put them on her broad shoulders and say, follow me, let me lead you. and they can do some great things when they get to the NCAA tournament.
And I think in that 2-game stretch when they lost to UConn and they lost to Mississippi State, Dawn Staley had it right when she said that Asia was kind of trying to take almost too much of the load, and that she really felt the pressure on her shoulders of this team. And the one thing that Pro brought up that I want to echo is the fact that not only did they not have the full strength of their team and the full complement of their team together for this run, but the other part of it is they went through the gauntlet. It wasn't like they had any time off. I mean, they went through a Georgia team that was very highly ranked, and they went through a Mississippi State team that was undefeated previously coming in and hadn't lost since the game against South Carolina in last year's national championship. So there's nothing fluky about this tournament victory. They were able to play the best in this conference, which I would say is the best women's basketball conference in the country, and to do it at a level that, again, we didn't expect them to reach after the regular season, the way that things ended with Asia going down with the vertigo and not necessarily knowing what she could bring to the table. And it's remarkable. And I know that some of the discussions have been made about, you know, where Asia Wilson is amongst the USC athletes of lore. I know Alex English has come out and said it's no contest. She's probably the best basketball player, male or female, in the history of this university, and that's high praise coming from that guy.
Well, Alex is a humble person. Anybody who knows him. Now, ask BJ Mackey. You might get an argument. BJ's not gonna. He's not gonna give up that label.
Pro would say Devin Downey, though, right?
Yep, it would probably be Devin Downey would take her on even at her height. But well, the weird thing about this tournament run, and I think Dawn Staley said before the game, her team was playing too fast. They had 45 turnovers in the 2 games before the championship game, and somehow at garbage time they created some more turnovers. But for most of the ball game, they had kept it under 10 until the waning moments of that ball game.
I tell you what, you play 3 games in the tournament. You beat Tennessee by 11, and it wasn't that close. You beat Georgia by 22, and then you beat Mississippi State by 11. That's 3 days of good work by your basketball team right there. So congratulations. Listen, it's always great to cut down the nets. You do not have to ever apologize for bringing home a trophy. And South Carolina and Dawn Staley, they can be proud of what they have accomplished there. Now, coming up on the program, we've got more from USC Clemson baseball. We'll hear from the head coaches. We talked today with some Gamecock football players. First time this spring, they've made players available. They brought offensive players to us over at Williams-Brice Stadium in the zone. We talked to Jake Bentley. You won't recognize Jake Bentley. Well, that's a bit of an exaggeration. But he has lost – he said he lost about 5 pounds. He looked to me to be much thinner than that. I mean, he has lost a lot of the bulk that he had upstairs. He's just thin. You can see it from the
baby
neck.
Fat.
Well, I don't know.
It was nothing more than baby fat, Corn. It wasn't like he was a chunky guy.
Well, he was maybe, I don't know if it was the weightlifting or just whatever it was. He just looks
conditioning, maybe.
He looks thinner. He looks thinner to me.
Dropped the Twinkies.
Maybe.
Stop going to Burger 77.
Zach Bailey and Donnell Stanley talked to both of those guys. They seem very happy with the moves. Though Donnell admits he is a little nervous about snapping and getting the ball to Bentley in the shotgun snap. He says about once a practice, he shoots it over his head. So
wouldn't you be nervous, Corn, if you're doing that for the first time? Come on.
Who was the center that turned USC quarterbacks into shortstops? Who was what? Remember the snap? They kept just rolling back to.
Well, even Alan Knott, who played center for a lot of years, had some float back there. You know, it's only natural. But not only that, you know, as a center, you got to pick up the blocking schemes. You got to identify blitzing linebackers. There's a load on your shoulder, not just getting the ball back to the quarterback in good shape. So we'll hear from Jake Bentley tonight here on the program. So Clemson is practicing. USC did not practice today. Well, they did have while we were in the stadium, they had some of the team. I don't think it was the whole team. It might have been just the offensive guys on the field at Williams-Brice. Not with footballs. There were no footballs involved, but they were doing some formational type stuff. Clemson is practicing or has wrapped up practice this afternoon. Dabo Sweeney is talking. We'll bring that to you later in the program as well, plus some special Frank Martin for you. Busy Monday here on Sports Talk. Phil Kornblut, Professor Tom Hayes here in Columbia, Will Pelagic up in New York for the ACC tournament, which begins tomorrow. We'll talk more about that coming up. Let me update a few notes here. First of all, the new basketball polls for the week. Clemson is 19 by the AP after that tough loss up at Syracuse, 20 by the coaches. Virginia, number one in both polls. Who would have thought that?
Wow.
Going into the season? That's why you never know. AP has Villanova 2, Xavier 3, Michigan State 4, and Duke 5. And those schools are also in the top 5 of the coaches poll. And one form or another. How about that Duke North Carolina game on Saturday?
20-point swing in the second half for the Dukies. But you expect that in Cameron. I mean, that Cameron magic caught North Carolina napping.
AP women's poll, of course, UConn gets all the votes, and South Carolina up 1 to number 7. Baylor is 2, and Louisville is number 3. The baseball polls for this week, Clemson is in all of them. The Tigers' highest ranking is 6th by Collegiate Baseball. They're 10 by Baseball America. By the coaches, they are 11, and by D1 Baseball, they are 12. Coastal Carolina breaks into the ranking this week for the first time this season. High mark of 21 by Collegiate Baseball. They are 24th in all the other polls. And Florida is your number 1 team in each of the Oregon State's number 1 by Collegiate Baseball, 12-0. Florida is 12-1, but is number 1 in all the other polls. USC pitcher Adam Hill was named the National Player of the Week, or a National Player of the Week by Collegiate Baseball after striking out 14 Tigers on Friday night. Back-to-back starts for him with 14 strikeouts. So he is going gangbusters. The Gamecocks need their other pitchers to step up. Will, one of the reasons the Gamecocks lost this series, walks, a lot of free passes they gave up to Clemson. Also, lack of timely hitting. Their hitting average with runners in scoring position was putrid. They were 0 for 15 till they finally broke through late in that game yesterday.
Yeah, they were 3 for 24 for the weekend, and the pitching staff had 21 free passes given, including the 1 walk to Robert Jolly in the final inning on Sunday, which set up the Drew Wharton triple that won it all for Clemson. And it's interesting because, Adam Hill, like you said, has been so good, and yet everything else has been so uncertain. Now, Cody Morris, up until this past weekend, had been stellar through his first 2 starts. He was getting the ball up in the mid-90s, and again, you wonder, with him coming back from off-season surgery, how the recovery process is. This is a 3rd start in, and you don't want to necessarily push him too much. So you wonder how they'll negotiate him through the next couple of weeks, whether or not they might try to back off of him and maybe try and turn that around, or again, it just could be the product of playing a quality hitting ball club like Clemson is. And one thing, as you were reading the polls and me seeing that earlier today, I wonder, it's not like they made a significant jump, but the jump was noticeable in the polls. And I'm wondering, the respect for that South Carolina name and that South Carolina brand of program is still strong enough, despite the 12-game start that they've gone through at just 7-5. It is strong enough to at least pique the minds of the voters and get them to raise the profile of a squad that takes 2 of 3 in the fashion that Clemson did over South Carolina, and the fact that the game that they lost on Friday was just by a solo run.
All right, let's hear from Monty Lee, get his thoughts about beating the Gamecocks. It's 4 years in a row for Clemson in winning this series, and, it's early in the year. It doesn't make or break your season, of course, because you've got your league play coming up, but it's a lot more comfortable under your seat when you win the Palmetto Series, and Monty's been able to enjoy that. And once again, he saw his team pull one out of the fire.
We just seem to find a way, and I think, we're now 11 games in. We've had 6 one-run games, and we're 5-1 in those games. So, our guys compete pretty hard as well. The game got started for us in the first inning. I thought our guys did a really good job when it came to their offensive approaches against Gilreath, who I think is going to be very, very good for them. Really pounds the strike zone, keeps the ball down with a good changeup. But we did a good job of using the whole field. Patrick Cromwell, off a home run to get things started for us. And I think the kind of swings that we took in the first inning kind of set the tempo for our offense. Cromwell had a heck of a day. Logan Davidson had a great day. In the 3rd inning, Logan got on with a walk. And then, we put together some good at-bats. Chris Williams with a single RBI. Jolly, ground ball RBI. Again, putting together team at-bats. Cromwell, in the 4th, we had 4 hits. Cromwell, 2 strikes, single, 2 RBIs. Logan had another big home run late. And then Wharton in the 9th. Robert Jolly deserves a lot of credit for drawing the walk right there. And, Wharton with 2 strikes on him, again, great offensive approach, using the whole field, hits the ball off the wall, and we find a way to get it done. So what a heck of a rivalry series. Glad to be able to get out of this one with a series win here at home in front of a great crowd. I got a little excited there when that run was coming in, but it's what keeps you young. That's why we do what we do. Wear my emotions on my sleeves sometimes, but I know I truly enjoyed it and will really enjoy having the day off tomorrow. But we got to get ready for a big week, but we finished this week with a huge win.
As for Mark Kingston, his first taste of the rivalry, he said before and afterwards, it's a great rivalry. He's happy to be a part of it. He's sad that they came out on the short end of the series, but after yesterday's game, the way his team rallied from 6 down to tie it in the 9th, it did give him a good feeling about his squad.
Well, I learned a lot about my team today. I learned that when we fell behind 6-0, we're not going to give up to anybody at any time, and I think that's important. The message I just gave the team is that we're obviously disappointed with the loss, but we learned a lot about ourselves today. A lot of teams in this ballpark falling behind 6-0 would not have done what we did today. So we learned a lot of good things today.
The difference was in the offense late in the game from maybe earlier in the series.
I just think, we finally had a good day to hit again today. It was a nice warm day and faced a lot of good fastballs, and we can get on the good fastball. We just took good at bats. Nobody's going to panic after a few days. We're faced good pitching all weekend. 7 runs today, 10 hits. It was a good offensive performance.
What do you think of Gilreath in his first start?
Gilreath was solid. Left a couple balls up there. Wasn't quite ahead of hitters like he had been. But it was a good learning experience for him and something he'll be able to build on.
What were the discussions like, Coach, in the dugout as you fell down 6-0 with everybody trying to keep everybody up in the dugout?
Stay calm. Stay positive. Don't give in. We'll be just fine. That's how championship teams react. You fall behind, you can panic, or you can stay calm, stay focused. That's what we did, and that's why we were able to tie it and had the winning run at third base there in the 9th.
All right, Mark Kingston, USC. Coach, one final piece of audio from the postgame. This from L.T. Tolbert, USC first baseman, who had some eye-opening comments about the Gamecock team now compared to last year and the way this team came back and nearly pulled that thing out yesterday.
Last year's team wouldn't have done that, and I think that starts at the top, and I'm not afraid to say that. Coach Kingston, I'll go to war with that guy any day, and I think everybody feels the same. There's a different feel this year, and when we get down, it's not the same. We're battling back, and you guys have seen it. Friday night we came back and won. Today, we were right there in it. Probably could have came away with a win, just didn't go our way. But there's never a doubt in our mind or a lack of confidence, and I think that starts with Coach Kingston, and we're going to be fine. And it's like I said, it starts with him. So
even with the loss, do you feel like you learned something about the team this weekend?
I learned a lot. Yeah, kind of what I just said is last year's team that we wouldn't even been in that ball game. It could have got out of hand 10-0. When we were down 6-0, that would have been it. And I think that just shows the difference in this team and how we just won't give up. And like I said, it starts with Coach Kingston, just the confidence that he instills in us. I think after TJ hit that homer, which even when we were down 6-0, he was still saying we're going to win this ball game. But after that homer, you could just tell there was a swagger. You knew that he had confidence in us, and that's a big difference, and it makes us feel a lot different and more confident as well.
All right. Not holding back his feelings, L.T. Tolbert. Of course, the Gamecocks suffered some lopsided losses last year, and I think they're proud of themselves for coming back and nearly pulling that thing out yesterday. We'll be right back.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
And you be sure to check out FoundersFCU.com and learn how they can assist you in all of your financial needs. Coming up, you might have seen it on ESPN yesterday on SportsCenter, a feature on USC basketball coach Frank Martin, not about him as a basketball coach, but about him and a near-death experience that he suffered through back in 2006 at Kansas State. Well, today, in meeting with the media, he went into the story behind that story, and I think you'll find it quite interesting. If you haven't seen the video, you can go to our website, SportsTalkSC.com, and see the YouTube video of the ESPN SportsCenter feature on Martin. If you watch it, then you'll get a better understanding of what he has to say when you hear from him coming up after the top of the hour here on Sports Talk. Let's give you tonight's recruiting report. It is long. It is juicy. It is full of good stuff. Of course, over the weekend, Clemson and USC picked up tight end commitments. The Tigers got Jalen Lay, 6'5", 215, out of Riverdale, Georgia, committed on Saturday while on campus for Junior Day. 36 catches, 356 yards, 6 touchdowns, despite having a freshman quarterback and constant double and triple teaming. Some of his other offers were USC, Louisville, Georgia, Indiana, Miami, Georgia Tech, Miami twice, Ole Miss, Syracuse.
Well, maybe it was Miami of Florida and Miami of Ohio.
No, it was just the Hurricanes.
All right.
They were so excited they offered him twice. So he is the third 2019 commitment for the Tigers, all from Georgia. Saturday, USC also got a commitment from tight end Keyshawn Toney of Williston Elko. He did not announce it until Sunday, 6'2", 220. And he's not a heavily recruited player. His other offers were Georgia State, South Carolina State. And when South Carolina offered him, of course, he was more than happy to jump on that. He was at USC's practice on Saturday, met with the coaches, and they offered him on the site Saturday. And after thinking it over, he got back to them, and he committed. 35 catches, 600 yards, and 4 touchdowns for his career, 1,571 career receiving yards, 107 catches, 11 scores on defense last season, 39 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, and 4 sacks. He gives the Gamecocks 7 commitments for their class. He plans to sign in December and enroll in January. Again, this is a player with not a lot of recruiting pedigree, so to speak of. You're not going to see a lot of stars by his name. He comes from a small school. 6'2", 220, however, an athlete, plays basketball as well, and he's a player that Muschamp believes can be developed into a receiving tight end. Now, look for Clemson maybe tonight to get another commitment, as today the Tigers offered place kicker Aiden Swanson of IMG Academy in Florida. He was already favoring Clemson. He visited Saturday. He had a preferred walk-on offer from the Tigers. Today they gave him a full offer, and I would think a commitment from him could come as early as tonight. Rice graduate transfer safety J.T. eBay made his official to USC over the weekend. Now he's working on his decision with Iowa State and Indiana, the others. He said by Wednesday he hopes to have his decision made. Had a really good visit, watched the practice sessions, focused, of course, on the secondary and the safety spots where he could see where he could fit in. And, of course, he's looking for a place where he can compete but also have a chance to step in and be a starter. 17 starts for him in his career at Rice. So he is a veteran playing safety, and any of the teams he chooses, of course, would benefit from his experience having played a good bit of football at Rice, even though Rice stinks as a football team. Per his high school coach, former high school coach Deion Bethea, USC, Clemson, Georgetown, Texas Tech, East Tennessee State, Illinois, among the schools to reach out to freshman guard Jalik Felton, who has left North Carolina. He prepped at Mullins and Gray Collegiate. Just to get the family tree correct, Raymond Felton is his uncle. And Raymond's dad, Raymond Sr., my former high school teammate, is his grandfather. So he has connections to Latta Home of Champions, even though he was out of Mullins originally before playing 1 year at Gray Collegiate. So keep an eye on that. We wouldn't be surprised if he ended up at South Carolina down the road. Place kicker Patrick Nations of Walhalla was at USC Saturday. The Gamecocks are his favorite at this point. South Carolina, the indications I'm getting from kickers is that they plan to offer a kicker in this class. They haven't done so yet. They're still evaluating a number of kickers. He is one of them, and he really had a good visit. He said the Gamecocks are coming at him the hardest right now, and South Carolina is his favorite. Running back Kendrell Flowers of Irmo was at USC over the weekend for the practice, and they're talking to him. They haven't offered yet. They're trying to determine if they like him as a running back or as a receiver. Clemson has also shown some interest in him as well. Linebacker Samuel Brooks of Miami committed to Miami, but said he's still in touch with USC and plans to visit with teammates for the spring game. 2020 defensive lineman Trey Williams of Oakdale, Connecticut was offered by Clemson. USC offered 2020 running back Elijah Green, Roswell, Georgia. 2020 running back Chris Tyree of Chester, Virginia. Athlete Torres Alexander, Conyers, Georgia. 2020 running back Roydell Williams of Hueytown, Alabama, was at Clemson Saturday for Junior Day. You know why Hueytown, Alabama is famous, Brian? That's the home of the Allison brothers, the NASCAR legends, Bobby Allison and Donnie Allison, and then Davey Allison. Also, I think Neil Bonnet came from Hueytown, Alabama. I know you're a big NASCAR fan, Brian. You're all over that. Clemson offered 2020 defensive back Keyshawn Lawrence of Ensworth, Tennessee. Athlete Joseph, I'm going to pronounce this, Nagata of Folsom, California, was at Clemson Saturday. He told Tiger Illustrated that Clemson is now his favorite. So that'll be one to keep an eye on for Clemson. I think they like him as a receiver. 2020 receiver Zevian Capers of Cumming, Georgia, was offered by Clemson Saturday. Tight end Luke Deal of Emerald was at Clemson Friday, said it was a very good visit. He went to Auburn Saturday, and he has set an official visit to Michigan for April 14th. Defensive back Kyle Hamilton of Atlanta was at Clemson Saturday. Tigers are high up on his list after the visit. He's at Vanderbilt today. Clemson recruiting him as a safety. TL Hanna quarterback Alex Meredith was offered by Furman, also Eastern Kentucky, and the Citadel recently offered him. 6'6" Jawan Gary of Gray Collegiate told the Big Spur after his team won the state championship Friday night his top schools are USC, Maryland, Connecticut, Virginia Tech, and Virginia. 2020 defensive end Andre Miller of Savannah was at USC Saturday. Clemson offered 2020 defensive end Jacob Cowan of Charlotte at the Junior Day. Another place kicker at USC Saturday, Ryan Fitzgerald of Moultrie, Georgia. Again, he had a good time, and he's waiting like the others to find out if South Carolina is going to offer. Defensive back Jamie Robinson, Cordele, Georgia, was at USC Saturday. The Gamecocks remain strong with him. Quarterback Garrett Schrader of Charlotte was at USC on Friday, and he watched practice, and he said that he got to spend time with the guys, which he enjoyed watching the offense and the installation, spent time with Dan Werner and Brian McClendon. He also talked to Will Muschamp for about 20 minutes, and he said the visit pushes the Gamecocks even higher up on his list. His next visit will be West Virginia on the 24th. Place kicker Anthony Rodriguez of Kennesaw, Georgia, was at USC on Friday. USC commitment defensive back Bryce Thompson of Dutch Fork was at USC Saturday, or planned to be. He says everything is the same right now, hopes to sign in April, says his grades are on an uptick. Clemson offered offensive lineman Adrian Medley of Pensacola, Florida. Greenville quarterback Davis Bevel was offered by Appalachian State. And defensive lineman Ben Smiley of Chesapeake, Virginia, plans to visit USC at some point this month. That'll do it. That is recruiting to the moment from over the weekend. Always keeping an eye on it on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, and on Twitter. Use the hashtag STRecruiting. We'll be back. More from Will in New York and Frank Martin talking about surviving. That's coming up.